Привет из Дубая. С вами передача «Голубь мира», где разбираем крутые навыки. Спрашиваем на английском, отвечаем на русском. Подтягивайте язык или смотрите перевод в тайм-кодах. Let's talk about standards and let's start with the definition.
When you do something, somebody could ask you, is it good or bad? Or, for example, you're looking at someone's work and you just hesitate. Is it okay? Or maybe it's done in a bad way. So you need something which will help you understand the quality of the job that was done, or maybe quality of the good that you are bought or trying to bought or intending to bought. So we use standards. Standard is a short description which will contain some digits, some parameters, and will help understand us how it works. For example, we were with Maxim living in ex-USSR zone, and for example, we never heard about this, but in some Western countries, if you buying olives or sausages, there is such a word as a caliber, and you will know that this is so big olives or bigger or even more bigger. The same with eggs. There is eggs for young chicken, average chicken, and old chicken. The same with potato. The same with, for example, pineapple. And there is a standard. For example, if you buy a cherry tomatoes, this is one price. If you salad tomatoes, this is another price. If you will buy a big tomato to produce a juice, this is another price. So standards will say us that, for example, cherry tomato could have size from lowest border to highest border. Everything what is lower will not be sold. The same, for example, in England. When I was in England, suddenly I realized that I could not find any curved cucumber. All of them were just straight as a pencil. And I asked an Indian guy who was selling them, why you have so straight cucumbers? And he told me, we use sorting, and if there is some small curve, we didn't sell it. It is not allowed by the law.
And when it comes to the standards itself, like what is the process of creating, aligning, and actually applying them maybe in a production or retail or anywhere else?
You know, now you will laugh, but for example, right now in the Moscow where I am living, there is an attempt to produce a standard to one type of food. It's called shawarma. I don't know how to say it in English.
It's called shawarma.
Shawarma, you know, and there is a special recipe which should be applied for different level of shawarma. How many meat, how many cabbages, carrot, and bread should be inside. And you know, it's very funny. When you are going to a good restaurant, you will always have well prepared bread, good meat, and you never think about quantity. But suddenly, people in Russia, they're trying to put standard to this food. And you know, I was thinking, I am from Ukraine, and if someone would put standard on borscht is so-called hot meal which could be used like a first meal on the lunch. And I was thinking, is it how it's important how many beans or how many potatoes is inside? Maybe it's not important. But for example, if you are if you have a car, usually it was tested. For example, it was loaded with some special dolls, and this car would be pressed against the concrete wall, and it would be measured how many inches was shifted by engine inside of the cabin. And there is several stars, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. If you have a 5-star safety vehicle, you could go with a small child. For example, the same with hotels. Usually I'm trying to stay at 5-star hotels, and I know why. If I will stay in 4-star hotel, it could be, for example, just one change of linen sheet per day. There would be another lack of some services which I used to have. But if I use 5 stars, I know that twice per day my linen sheets would be changed.
And when it comes to learning about the standards on the different territories, does it make sense to be aware of all of the possible variations, or it's just good to know like something which is your territory and maybe like a couple of neighbors?
You know, different territories have different standards. I was responsible for my company to working with hotels, and I was working especially with Ritz-Carlton, and I was trying to make each hotel of this chain to gain so-called diamond star. And I was working in Sharm el Sheikh, and I was working with hotel, and everything was good. And suddenly I was offered, I want to go to some excursion. This excursion was developed by Englishmen like 100 years ago. On the 5-star steamboats, you will go through the Nile and you will see all this ancient building. And I was saying, yes, okay, I want to go. But when I came to the boat, suddenly I realized this is not a 5-star boat. Yes, it has 5 stars, but there is some пониженные стандарты. Lowered standards.
Lowered, yeah.
Lowered standards. And in this case, I was surprised. The same was in Turkey. I was working with hotel. The name was Grand Prestige. It was very huge, very fancy hotel, but suddenly I found there are lack of some facilities. And when I asked the guy who was managing, he was saying, come on, for Turkey, it's okay, like a 5-star. Yes, if you will compare, for example, to the Asia, yes, it's almost not even 4-star. But we used to know that for Turkey, it's okay. And it was very funny. Sometimes you'll meet 5-star hotel without swimming pool, or with slow elevators, or without like gym. And anyway, they will try to bribe somebody, especially in Malaysia or Indonesia, and they have like 5 stars or 4 stars without any оснований, without any ground.
Without any baseline or like any reasons. And when it comes to, like let's say like by your profession or by your skills, you're actually not supposed to know the standards, but like, will it make sense to still know them so that at the specific point of time when you're speaking to the specialists who might be aware of them, you actually can maybe add additional context to the conversation or show that you go slightly in more deeper. So why it will make sense to do this, and what should be the approach to learning them?
I will give you a really nice example. It was like, I don't know, 26 years ago, and this was my first round the Earth trip. Is it okay to say around the Earth?
Across the world.
Across the world. Suddenly I realized that it is not so expensive, because if you buy a ticket in one way and back way, it costs really expensive. But if you're buying ticket around the globe, it would be much cheaper. And I was trying to visit as many countries as it possible. Yes, I started to fly with Ukrainian Airlines, then with Russian Airlines, then Korean Airlines, and so on. And suddenly I realized that the same bag and backpack in some companies is quite usual size and weight to go, but some were asking to pay, for example, $50, because my backpack or my bag was little bigger than their sizes of this, I don't know how to say that, the special stand to check the size of the luggage.
Check-in box.
Check-in box. And it was very funny. Then I realized that, okay, I have enough money, I would buy not economic class, but business class. But even in business class, sometime I was given the same food as economic class. And when I was trying to say, come on, I am business, and they were saying, yes, you have a chair which is wider, but you have the same food. This is a policy of our company. So you should always ask why you are buying business class. Even in Russia, there are several companies. If you are flying by Aeroflot, you will have very high standards. But if you will fly, for example, S7, you will have almost the same size as chair and almost the same food. So there is no reason to buy business class. Yes, it is cheaper than in Aeroflot, but it is completely no reason to buy it.
And when it actually comes to developing or maybe creating standards of something that were not standardized before, and even, like creating standards that no one ever will see, but you still will be using it in your own life, what should be the approach here? What should be the mindset? And what is the reasoning for doing that?
If you're working alone, it is very easy to do. You are boss of your own life and you could create rules or standards. If you are boss of the team, if you are leader of the group, you also could create. But if you are, for example, process manager or product manager or methodologist, it is not easy to implement. For example, you are asking to issue the bank card in 30 minutes. For example, to repay insurance in 48 hours and so on. But anyway, you will have lack of resources and some of standards would be broken. So you should not use very high bar to stand them. It was my mistake. I was working in Moscow and I was asked to accelerate one bank branch, and I realized that if we will re-engineer some process, we will make this branch faster. And then I was trying to roll out this policy for 100 branches in the same city in the Moscow. Suddenly, my colleague who was responsible for staff, he told me, never use high standards. You should be aware and you should be sure that 70% of the people could easily meet with your standards. If you will make them higher, they will never have a bonus. Think about people, don't think about just digits.
And my last question will be how knowing about the standards could help to make this world a better place.
If you know standards, for example, for hotels, for restaurants, you will ask staff to meet them and maybe you will have quarrels. But if you will ask your employees to meet the standards, your clients would be happy. So to create standards, to support standards, to be a benchmark or to be included in best practice on your market, this is a good deal.
А мы рассмотрели стандарты и чем они полезны именно вам. Всем мира!